Praises and condemnation continue to follow the ruling APC 2 hours after its announcement of its zoning formula for positions in the National Assembly. Well, the Senate presidency will go to the South-South, with Godswill Akpabio named as a preferred candidate. Well, the position of Speaker of the House of Representatives was actually zoned to the Northwest, with Tajuddin Abbas from Kaduna State announced as the preferred consensus candidate. A senator-elect from Kano State, that's Kano South Senatorial District, Samaila Kawu, was warned. He actually has warned the APC about the dangers of zoning. Kawu, who is a member of the new Nigeria People's Party, has actually described APC's actions as an insult to opposition members elect in the 10th National Assembly.
For us who suffer a lot to defend the sanctity of the National Assembly, we believe it is an insult. We thought the President and the APC will learn from their past mistake in the 7th Assembly, where President Jonathan intends to dictate to us where we will go in the selection of the Speaker of the House of Representatives. We say no. The Constitution, we must follow the rule of law and the Constitution. And even in the 8th National Assembly, Saraki Ike is a good example. We must do justice. What we are seeing today is new. There was no time in these 24 years of democracy where a political party, with the impunity of PDP in the previous days, there was no time they wrote a zoning and tied a name and sent it to the parliament. This is the first time we see this. We need to come and challenge it.
Senator-elect Samaila Kawu there. Well, let's bring in our Rice News analyst, Mahmud Jega, to really have a conversation about, of course, the zoning as announced by the NWC of the ruling APC. Mahmud Jega, first of all, welcome back.
Welcome back. Thank you very much after a long time. Really.
Absolutely. So let's start with, what do you make of the zoning as announced by the NWC of the APC, especially in the midst of all the clamor by different geopolitical zones for, you know, the positions of either Senate President or Deputy or whatever, especially looking at how they delivered for the ruling party?
Well, the truth is that after the general elections, the political parties are very interested in the leadership positions of the National Assembly. And they must scheme and plan in such a way. For example, the ruling party, it is very important for it to see how it can produce the leadership of the National Assembly, because that should help to make for harmony between the executive president and also the National Assembly. And the other parties, of course, they also will do their own scheming and see if they can seize one or all of the positions. Now, when a political party is trying to determine, it takes many things into consideration. The most important thing is to win, but there are other considerations. You have to look at, in the case of Nigeria, where the president came from, where the the vice president came from, and very importantly also, where did you win during the election? Nigerian political parties, it is paramount in their mind to reward those areas that favored them in the election. You know, there are times when, for example, you may, even if you want to zone a position to a certain zone, if, for example, you don't have any senator or house member from that zone, then there is virtually nothing you can do. Although in this particular case, that is not the case.
Not the case.
Yeah, you may have in every zone, only that in some zones maybe you have very few senators or members of the House. So you take everything into consideration. Maybe what was unusual was not only did APC zone the positions to particular zones, but they went ahead and attached names. That we have zoned Senate presidency to the South-South, and it is Mr. Akpabio, that kind of thing. Maybe that was an innovation. In previous cases, dating back to the Second Republic, I don't think it happened like that. Usually the party will mention the zone and then behind the scenes it will look at the candidates it has from that zone and choose one and try to ram him.
And that has actually raised questions. But sorry about that. That has actually raised what you've talked about in terms of not just zoning it, but giving individuals names. This has actually raised questions about the independence of the legislative arm of government and the interest of the executives. Some sort of conflict of interest, some would say. Do you agree?
Well, in the end, whether outwardly or behind the scenes, the party leaders, led by the president, will have to settle for a candidate. I mean, you can't just leave things like that in politics. Otherwise, there could be chaos in the assembly and the ruling party could even lose the position to other parties.
Isn't there a danger of that happening now? I mean, some are saying, look, this might just be deja vu of what happened in 2015. To what extent, really, should the party be involved in the choice of who emerges at the leadership level? I mean,
I think the
lawmakers are already saying, look, there's going to be a gang up of opposition. We're going to use our majority, you know, to fight whatever the party is coming up with.
You see, political parties are about that, about power, who gets what, how they distribute and balance and everything. So they must get involved. But you are right. If they don't do it carefully, then all kinds of things will happen. Like you mentioned in 2015, the APC leadership, although they didn't announce publicly like they did this time, but they had a preferred candidate, but another aspirant, Senator Bukola Saraki in that case, got elected with the help of PDP members, even though he was an APC guy. And it made for a stormy 4 years because there was a frosty relationship between him and the Buhari presidency. So the risks are always there. In this particular cycle, the big complication is that the APC does not have a majority in the House of Representatives.
Yes.
Okay, no party has. But the opposition parties together have a slight majority. But of course, there are many of them. They have set up a committee to try to harmonize, which is
well, there are about 7 parties in the opposition in the House of Representatives. But Mahmud Jega, you know, at the end of the day, the independence of one arm of government, the legislature this time around, which of course is why we're having these conversations, the political party is not allowing democratic institutions to work independently. It raises a lot, of course, for concerns. Why not allow the members decide for themselves at the end of the day? Yes, we know they have vested interest, but attaching names to positions, that's where the question mark is.
Well, the way I see it, maybe it was not very advisable to have announced names and attached to positions as the APC did. But even if they didn't do it publicly, they will do it privately. That's the fact, because even when the party zones particular offices to particular zones, they will still have to work underground and harmonize. Okay, for example, if you say APC says we have zoned the Senate presidency to the South-South, we cannot allow all the APC senators in the South-South zone to go on the day of inauguration and contest, because then they could lose. So you still have to narrow it down to one person. Maybe you don't have to announce it publicly, but you just have to work for one person. Otherwise, you may not get the position.
But considering the overall temperature in the country, both before the presidential election and after, this choice of leadership for the National Assembly that we hear that the president-elect is very much in support of, does it really reflect the whole idea of fairness, equity, and justice? Or is this about to become a major storm?
You know, we have been over this ground before, even during the party primaries, over the choice of running mates and all that. As I said, fortunately or unfortunately, political parties tend to emphasize areas where they won. It is very important for them because the calculation is this: look, this zone and this one and this one voted for us. That's why we have the presidency. That's why we have the majority in the National Assembly. The most important thing is to keep the loyalty of those zones, because As long as
but the argument has been made here on many occasions, on this same show too, that, look, you cannot go by the idea of rewarding any particular section of the country in the name of, you know, giving them more than the fair share of the cake. I mean, you have one zone getting the deputy Senate presidency and, of course, the speaker.
I don't know why the party did that, because I have seen some legislators from the North Central Zone
who are also crying marginalization.
Exactly, because that zone was also won by APC in the last election. The only thing we can say is that politicians have their own rules and reasons, and there are also risks to all these decisions. Whatever you do, if you do it wrongly, and it leads to an eruption within the party, then it could lead to an unpleasant...
How do you think the APC should handle this?
Interest of the party over the interest of Nigerians.
How do you think the APC should handle this?
I cannot advise APC. Let them do whatever they think, because they know more than I know.
Mahmud, Jega, at the end of the day, the interest of the party seems like that is what is taking precedence over the interest of Nigerians. And the implication of a rebellion, some would say, can be disastrous. But of course, we'll wait and see how the APC is able to put its house in order and, of course, get the opposition as well.
Thank you very much, Mahmud Jega, for joining us on Newsnight tonight.